The deep hum of the Stellar Pioneer's engines filled the observation deck as Dr. Jack Reed stared at the strange readings on his tablet. For the third time this week, the energy sensors had picked up something that shouldn't exist in normal space. The anomaly pulsed with a rhythm that reminded him of a heartbeat. "Dr. Reed, you need to see this." Mary, his research assistant, rushed into the room. Her usual calm demeanor was gone, replaced by barely contained excitement. The readings just jumped by 300%. Jack followed her to the main science lab, where holographic displays showed a growing disturbance in the fabric of space. The other scientists stood around the central table, their faces lit by the blue glow of the readings. Through the lab's massive window, a point of golden light had appeared in the darkness of space. "Whatever it is, it's stable and growing," said Professor James, the team's senior physicist. He adjusted his old-fashioned glasses, a habit he had when things got interesting. "And it's definitely not natural." The ship's captain, an experienced spacer named Bill Roberts, joined them in the lab. "Is it dangerous?" he asked, getting straight to the point. Before anyone could answer, the point of light expanded into a swirling portal of gold and silver energy. The ship's sensors screamed warnings as reality itself seemed to bend. Through the portal, they could see what looked like another world, a world where floating islands drifted through purple skies and crystal towers reached impossible heights. "My God," whispered Jack. But what caught everyone's attention wasn't the alien landscape. It was the ships coming through the portal. If you could call them ships, they looked like they were made of living crystal and light, moving in ways that ignored the laws of physics. The radio crackled to life with an unexpected message in clear English. "To the vessel of science, we seek sanctuary. The darkness follows close behind us." Captain Roberts looked at Jack, who nodded. This was why they were out here, to make first contact, to find new knowledge. The captain opened a channel. "This is Captain Roberts of the research vessel Stellar Pioneer. We're receiving you." The largest of the crystal ships moved closer, and in a flash of light, 3 figures appeared on the observation deck. They were human in shape, but their skin had a slight glow, and their clothes seemed to shift and move like living things. The tallest of them stepped forward, an older man with silver hair and eyes that looked like they held galaxies. "I am Thomas Gray, Archmage of the Lightborn," he said, bowing slightly. "We are refugees, fleeing from those who would destroy both our worlds. They have found a way to corrupt the very essence of magic itself." Jack noticed how the man's companions kept looking back at the portal nervously. One of them, a younger man, raised his hand, and a sphere of pure energy appeared, showing images of cities under attack by shadows that ate light itself. "Magic," Professor James stuttered. "That's impossible. There must be a scientific explanation." Thomas smiled sadly. "Your science and our magic are not as different as you think. Both seek to understand and shape reality. But now both are threatened. The Dark Wielders have learned to consume magical essence, and their hunger grows if they break through to your realm." A violent tremor shook the ship. Through the portal, dark shapes began to appear, like tears in reality itself. The younger Lightborn raised their hands, and barriers of light sprang up around the portal. "We don't have much time," Thomas said urgently. "We need your help. Your science, combined with our magic, might be the key to stopping them. Will you help us?" Jack looked at Captain Roberts, who was already reaching for the ship's comm. "All hands to battle stations, and someone get Earth on the line. Looks like humanity just got pulled into a war we never knew existed." The battle for 2 realms was about to begin, and humanity's first lesson in magic would come with a price tag of blood and sacrifice. 3 days after the Lightborn arrived at Earth's main space station, Jack still couldn't believe what he was seeing. In the station's largest chamber, Thomas Gray stood in a circle of light, showing Earth's leaders what they were up against. The images floating in the air were both beautiful and terrifying. "This is Marcus Black," Thomas said, pointing to a tall figure wrapped in shadows. He was once our greatest protector, keeper of our most powerful magic. But he discovered something he shouldn't have, a way to steal magical essence from others. The image showed Marcus performing a ritual that made several observers look away. Where he walked, plants died, and the very air seemed to darken. People he touched turned gray and lifeless, their magic torn from their bodies. "Why come to us?" asked General Adams, her face stern but curious. "What can Earth's weapons do against this kind of power?" Jack stepped forward. "We've already found something interesting." He held up a simple laptop showing energy readings. "When we scan their magic with our instruments, it follows patterns. It has rules. That means we can understand it, and if we can understand it, we can fight it," finished Mary, who had been working non-stop with the Lightborn. She pressed a button, and a small drone flew into the room. One of the younger Lightborn, Peter, pointed at it, sending a stream of light magic its way. The drone's sensors captured everything. "Magic isn't random," Jack explained. "It's like a new form of energy we never knew about. And our technology can detect it, measure it, maybe even control it." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. On the main screen, a massive dark portal opened near Mars. Through it came ships that looked like they were made of living shadows. "He's found us already," Thomas said, his face going pale. "Marcus is moving faster than we thought." The dark ships released what looked like black lightning, destroying 2 of Mars' defense satellites instantly. Earth's space fleet moved to respond, but their weapons passed right through the shadow ships. "Regular weapons won't work," Thomas warned. "They're protected by void magic." Jack looked at his readings and had an idea. "What about plasma? Your light magic and our plasma weapons, they're both forms of excited energy. If we combine them—" He didn't get to finish. A shadow ship appeared right next to the station, and through its dark hull, they could see Marcus Black himself. His face was handsome but cruel, his eyes completely black. "Did you think you could hide in another realm?" Marcus's voice echoed in their heads. "I can smell the power here. So much untapped energy, so much potential to harvest." Thomas and the other Lightborn raised shields of pure light around the station. Earth's defense systems came online, filling space with bullets and missiles that did nothing to the shadow ship. But Jack was already running to the station's power control room, Mary right behind him. "If we can reroute power from the station's fusion reactor through the magical shields," he shouted as they ran, "we might be able to create a weapon that works." In space, Marcus raised his hand, and darkness began to eat away at the Lightborn's shields. Inside the station, people screamed as they felt the cold touch of his power trying to reach them. Jack reached the control room and started typing commands frantically. "Mary, tell Thomas to be ready. This might either save us or blow up the whole station." With a massive surge of power, the station's lights flickered. The fusion reactor's energy flowed into the magical shields, making them glow brighter than ever before. Where the combined energy met Marcus's darkness, something new happened. The shadows began to break apart. Marcus's surprise showed on his face for just a moment before he pulled his ships back. "Interesting," his voice echoed one last time. "You've bought yourself some time, nothing more. But now I know where you are. And I know what this realm can offer me." As the shadow ships retreated, Jack looked at his readings with a mix of hope and worry. They had found a way to fight back, but they had also just shown their enemy that human science could enhance magic in ways even he hadn't imagined. 1 month after the attack on the space station, the old aircraft hangar looked nothing like its original self. Scientists and mages worked side by side in what they now called the Convergence. Jack watched from the upper walkway as Mary worked with Peter to channel magical energy through a modified plasma conductor. "It's ready for another test," Mary called out, her face showing excitement despite her lack of sleep. The conductor glowed with a mix of scientific and magical power, creating patterns no one had seen before. Thomas Gray walked up beside Jack, looking down at the busy work floor. "Your people learn quickly," he said. In just a month, you've made discoveries that took us centuries. We're good at solving problems when we need to, Jack replied, especially when the alternative is having our world drained of energy by shadow ships. Below them, more projects were underway. Engineers worked on a combat suit that could channel magical energy through its circuits. A group of soldiers learned how to use shields made of light from one of the Lightborn teachers. In another corner, Professor James studied how magical storage crystals could link with quantum batteries. A loud buzz filled the air as Mary and Peter started their test. The plasma conductor lit up, and a beam of combined energy shot across the room into a special target. The readings on their instruments went higher than ever before. "We've done it," Mary shouted. "The energy output is stable. We can maintain the fusion of magic and technology." But their celebration was cut short. Robert Cooper, their military contact, rushed into the hangar. "We've got trouble," he said, his face serious. "Our deep space sensors just picked up multiple shadow ships. They're heading for our biggest power plants." "Marcus is making his move," Thomas said. "He's learned that your power plants are like wells of energy he can corrupt and steal." Jack grabbed his tablet and started sending messages to all team leaders. "Then it's time to see if our work here pays off. How soon can we get our new weapons ready?" The next few hours were a blur of activity. Soldiers put on the new combat suits while engineers did final checks on the plasma magic weapons. The Lightborn worked with human technicians to create defensive barriers around key locations. "Remember," Thomas told the gathered forces, "Marcus doesn't just want to destroy. He wants to corrupt and consume. Every power plant he takes makes him stronger." Jack looked at the assembled teams, humans in advanced tech suits standing next to Lightborn in their flowing robes, both carrying weapons that mixed science and magic. It was a sight no one could have imagined just a month ago. "The shadow ships will be here in 1 hour," Robert announced. "We've evacuated the civilians from the target areas." Mary walked up to Jack, carrying 2 of the new plasma magic rifles. "The stored energy should last for about 30 minutes of continuous use," she explained, handing him one. "After that, they'll need to recharge." Peter joined them, his hands glowing with protective spells. "We've linked the magical shields to your power grid," he said. "They'll be stronger than anything we could create alone." Jack checked the final reports coming in from around the world. Teams were in position at every major power plant. The new defense satellites were online, their weapons modified with magical crystals. For the first time, they were ready to face Marcus with more than just emergency reactions. "Their ships are entering the atmosphere," Robert called out. Everyone moved to their positions. Jack could feel the combined hum of technology and magic all around him. "Remember," Thomas said to everyone through their communication systems, "we're not just defending. We're showing Marcus that the combination of human science and our magic is more powerful than his stolen power." As the first shadow ships appeared in the sky, Jack gripped his rifle and smiled. It was time to show the Dark Wielders what happened when they pushed humans to innovate. The shadow ships came down from the sky like dark rain. Jack watched from his position near the main power plant as they approached. The plant's cooling towers stood tall behind him, their shapes barely visible in the unnatural darkness that came with Marcus's forces. "Everyone hold positions," Robert's voice came through the radio. "Wait for them to get closer." Mary stood next to Jack, her modified rifle humming with combined energy. Around them, soldiers in their new tech-enhanced suits checked their weapons one last time. The Lightborn spread out among them, their hands ready to cast spells. The first shadow ship fired, sending black lightning toward the power plant. But this time, they were ready. Peter and 2 other Lightborn raised their hands, creating a shield of light. At the same time, engineers activated the new defense system. The magical shield merged with the plant's energy field, turning the black lightning away. "Now," Robert shouted, "show them what we've got." Jack raised his rifle and fired. A beam of blue-white energy shot out, a mix of plasma and light magic. When it hit the shadow ship, something new happened. Instead of passing through, the beam cut into the dark material. Other soldiers fired too, their combined shots making the ship scream in a way that hurt their ears. But Marcus's forces were strong. More ships appeared, dropping shadow warriors onto the ground. These creatures looked like people made of living darkness, carrying weapons that seemed to eat light. "Watch each other's backs," Mary called out as she fired at the approaching warriors. "Remember your training." A shadow warrior charged at Jack, but he remembered what Thomas had taught them. He pressed a button on his suit, activating its magical enhancement. His movements became faster, smoother. He dodged the dark blade and fired his rifle at point-blank range, turning the warrior to smoke. Above them, the battle in the sky grew more intense. Earth's fighter jets, now equipped with magical crystals, engaged the shadow ships. Beams of light and darkness crisscrossed the air. Some planes fell, but more shadow ships were destroyed than ever before. "The main power plant is holding," Robert reported, "but they're hitting other targets worldwide. London is under heavy attack. Tokyo needs reinforcements." Suddenly, a larger shadow ship appeared. Its side opened, and Marcus Black himself stepped out, floating in the air. His presence made the very air feel cold. "Clever tricks," his voice boomed. "But do you really think this will be enough?" Marcus raised his hands, and the darkness around him grew deeper. Shadow tentacles reached for the power plant's towers. Where they touched, the metal began to corrode. "Everyone fall back to secondary positions," Robert ordered. But Jack saw something in the readings on his tablet. "Mary, look at this," he said quickly. "The way his power affects the metals, it's creating a specific energy pattern." Mary understood immediately. She connected her tablet to the plant's systems. "If we reverse the power flow and add a magical burst." They didn't have time to explain. Shadow warriors were getting closer, and Marcus's power was eating through their defenses. Mary typed commands while Jack and Peter protected her. "Ready," she shouted. "Everyone, shields up now." The power plant's systems reversed. Instead of trying to defend against Marcus's power, they let it in, but with a trap. The moment his darkness touched the core systems, Mary activated her program. The plant released a pulse of energy that had been specifically tuned to disrupt his power's pattern. Marcus's attack faltered. For a moment, his shadow form became visible solid. The soldiers didn't waste the chance. Every rifle fired. Every Lightborn cast their strongest spells. The combined assault hit Marcus directly for the first time. His scream of rage shook the ground. The shadow ships retreated, taking their wounded leader with them. As the unnatural darkness faded, they could see the damage around them, but also their victory. The power plant still stood, and they had proved that Marcus wasn't invincible. "We've got similar reports from other locations," Robert announced, his voice tired but happy. "They're retreating worldwide. We've won this round." Jack looked at the readings from the battle. "We didn't just win," he said. "We learned how his power works. And next time, we'll be even better prepared." 2 weeks after their first major victory, Jack stood before the portal that would take them to the magical realm. The Convergence team had built it using a mix of quantum technology and magical crystals. Around him, soldiers and Lightborn prepared for their first attack into Marcus's territory. "The portal is stable," Mary said, checking her instruments. "But we'll only have 6 hours before the power runs out." Thomas Gray approached their strike team, his face serious. "Beyond this portal lies our home world. Marcus has turned much of it into a dark wasteland, but there are still places and people worth saving." Robert checked his enhanced combat suit one last time. "Remember the plan. We're not just fighting. We're there to set up the disruption devices. If they work, we can weaken Marcus's whole network of power." The disruption devices were Jack's latest creation. They looked like simple metal boxes, but inside they held a complex mix of quantum technology and magical crystals. Each one could create a field that turned Marcus's dark magic against itself. Moving out in 5 minutes, Robert announced to the gathered forces, 30 soldiers and 20 Lightborn made up their strike force. Each carried weapons and equipment that combined the best of both worlds. The portal hummed louder, and then they were through. Jack's first view of the magical realm took his breath away. Floating islands hung in a purple sky, but many were now wrapped in dark chains of shadow magic. Crystal towers that once shone with light now stood dark and corrupted. "Movement ahead," a soldier called out. Shadow warriors emerged from the darkness, but they were ready. The combined force moved like they had trained for months, soldiers and Lightborn working in perfect pairs. Peter raised magical shields while his human partner fired plasma bolts through them, the shield actually making the shots stronger. Mary used her tablet to scan for energy patterns, directing teams to the best positions for their disruption devices. "The first device is in position," Jack reported, finishing the activation sequence. A pulse of energy spread out, and nearby shadow creatures began to dissolve. But then the ground shook. A massive shadow dragon appeared, its wings spreading darkness across the sky. On its back stood Marcus Black, looking weaker than before, but still dangerous. "You dare to bring your science into this realm?" he roared. "This is a world of pure magic." "No," Thomas shouted back. "This is a world of balance, which you destroyed. And now we'll show you what real power looks like." Jack checked his readings and saw something amazing. The dragon. It's not made of real dark magic. It's an illusion, powered by the energy he stole from this place. Mary understood immediately. She connected her tablet to the nearest disruption device and turned its power to maximum. The device shot out a beam of combined energy that hit the dragon. For a moment, nothing happened. Then cracks of light appeared in the darkness. "All teams, target the dragon," Robert ordered. "Concentrate your fire." Every soldier and Lightborn attacked at once. Plasma bolts, light spells, and combined energy beams all struck together. The dragon's dark form began to break apart, and Marcus fell from its dissolving back. But before they could capture him, Marcus raised his hands. A wave of darkness swept him away, carrying him to a distant tower that pulsed with stolen magical energy. "Let him run," Jack said, checking his instruments. "The disruption devices are working. Each one we plant weakens his power in this realm, and I'm getting readings on where his power comes from." Thomas looked at the data on Jack's tablet. "That tower, it's the old Library of Ages. Of course, he's using our oldest magical artifacts to power his darkness." "Then that's our next target," Robert said firmly. "We've proved we can hurt him. Now it's time to take away his source of power." As they regrouped and tended to their wounded, Jack looked at the tower in the distance. They had won their first battle in this realm, but the real fight was just beginning. Still, for the first time, he felt sure they could win. Human science had found a way to fight back against dark magic, and soon they would find a way to end this war for good. In the heart of the Convergence facility, Jack watched as engineers assembled the largest machine ever built by humans and mages working together. The quantum magical reactor stood 3 stories tall, its core a perfect mix of advanced technology and ancient magic. "The energy readings are stable," Mary said, looking up from her workstation. "The magical crystals are accepting the quantum field without any problems." Thomas walked around the reactor's base, checking the magical runes they had carved into the metal. "When this activates, it will create something entirely new. A space between spaces, where neither pure science nor pure magic can exist." Peter rushed into the room, his face worried. "We've got trouble. Our scouts report shadow ships approaching from all directions. Marcus is bringing everything he has left." Robert's voice came through the facility speakers. "All defense teams to your positions. This is what we've trained for. We hold until the reactor is ready." The building shook as the first attacks hit their outer shields. Through the windows, they could see dozens of shadow ships darkening the sky. Marcus had brought an army. "How much longer until the reactor is ready?" Jack asked, checking the power levels on his tablet. 20 minutes for full power," Mary answered, her fingers flying over the controls. "But we need all 20 minutes. If we rush it, the whole thing could explode." Another blast rocked the building. On the security screens, they could see shadow warriors breaking through the outer defenses. Soldiers and Lightborn fought back with their combined weapons, but there were so many enemies. "We need more time," Jack said. He grabbed his enhanced rifle and turned to Thomas. "Can you help Mary finish the reactor? I need to help with the defense." Thomas nodded, taking Jack's place at the control station. Jack ran to join the battle, passing teams of defenders setting up positions in the hallways. The sound of fighting grew louder as he got closer to the outer walls. He found Robert organizing the defense near a broken section of wall. Shadow warriors poured in, only to be met with plasma fire and light spells. But for each one they destroyed, 2 more took its place. "They're trying to reach the reactor," Robert shouted over the noise of battle. "Marcus must know what we're building." As if summoned by his name, Marcus himself appeared in the gap, his dark power greater than ever. The shadow warriors around him moved with new strength, pushing the defenders back. "Your clever machine won't save you," Marcus called out, his voice full of confidence. "I've seen what you're building. It's an abomination. Science and magic were never meant to mix." Jack fired his rifle, the enhanced plasma bolt cutting through several shadow warriors. "You're wrong," he shouted back. "They work perfectly together. You just don't understand either one properly." Marcus raised his hands, darkness gathering around him. But before he could attack, something unexpected happened. The shadow warriors nearest to the reactor room began to flicker and fade. "Jack," Mary's voice came through his radio. "The reactor is causing a reaction even before full power. Its quantum field is disrupting his control over the shadows." Understanding hit Jack like a lightning bolt. He keyed his radio to all channels. "Everyone fall back to the reactor room. Draw them in closer." The defenders pulled back, making Marcus think he was winning. Shadow warriors followed them deeper into the facility, getting closer to the reactor with each step. But as they got closer, more and more of them began to break apart. Marcus felt his power weakening and realized the trap too late. "The reactor is ready," Mary announced. "Starting final sequence now." Light filled the entire building as the reactor powered up. Where that light touched shadow warriors, they dissolved into nothing. Marcus screamed in rage and fear, trying to pull his forces back, but it was too late. The quantum magical reactor had created its first field, and nothing that existed in both realms could resist its power. The question now was, could they control it enough to end this war without destroying everything they were trying to save? The quantum magical reactor filled the facility with strange light that was neither pure science nor pure magic. Marcus stood at the center of his remaining shadow warriors, his power visibly weakening as the reactor's field grew stronger. "Mary, what are the readings?" Jack called out, keeping his rifle aimed at Marcus while the reactor hummed behind them. "The field is stable but growing fast," she answered, her eyes fixed on her screens. "But something unexpected is happening. The barriers between the realms, they're not just blocking magic, they're changing." Thomas Gray stepped forward, his eyes wide with understanding. "It's not just creating a prison for dark magic, it's bringing both worlds together." Marcus laughed, but there was fear in his voice. "Then you'll destroy both realms. Stop this madness now." "No," Jack said firmly, looking at his own readings. "It's not destroying anything. It's evolving both worlds." "Mary, show everyone the sensor feeds." The facility's screens lit up with data. Where the reactor's field touched the world, things changed. Plants began to glow with their own light. Metal objects gained patterns that looked like magical runes. The very air seemed to shimmer with new possibilities. "This is what you never understood, Marcus," Thomas said. "Magic and science aren't enemies. They're two parts of the same reality. We just needed humanity's help to see it." Marcus screamed in rage and gathered his remaining power for one final attack. Shadow energy swirled around him like a tornado. "I'll destroy your reactor before it can complete its work." "All teams, defensive positions," Robert ordered. Soldiers and Lightborn moved as one, forming a ring around the reactor. The battle that followed was like nothing they had seen before. Marcus's shadow warriors charged from all directions, but in the reactor's field, they were weaker than ever. Human weapons and magical spells worked together perfectly, each making the other stronger. Jack and Peter fought side by side, plasma bolts and light spells combining into new forms of energy. Mary worked at the reactor controls, adjusting its field to protect their allies while weakening their enemies. Marcus fought his way closer to the reactor, but with each step, more of his stolen power faded away. The shadows around him grew thin, revealing the man he used to be. "Now," Jack shouted. "Everyone. Full power." Every soldier fired their weapons. Every Lightborn cast their strongest spells. Mary activated the reactor's final sequence. The combined energy struck Marcus just as the reactor reached its peak. For a moment, everything stopped. Marcus floated in the air, caught between shadow and light, between science and magic. Then, with a sound like 1,000 bells ringing, the reactor's field expanded to cover everything. When the light faded, the world had changed. The facility's walls now had flowing patterns that moved like living things. The soldiers' weapons had become part machine, part magical artifact. Even the air felt different, filled with both electrical charge and magical energy. Marcus lay on the ground, normal again, his stolen power gone. The shadow warriors had vanished completely. Thomas stepped forward and bound Marcus with chains made of light and strange technology. "The readings are incredible," Mary said softly. "The reactor didn't just stop him. It's changed everything. The two realms, they're becoming one." Outside, they could see the changes spreading. Cities in both worlds began to shift and merge. Earth's technology took on magical properties, while magical artifacts developed scientific components. It wasn't destruction, it was transformation. "So what happens now?" Robert asked, looking at the new world forming around them. Jack smiled, watching as a group of human children played with magical light while their parents talked to Lightborn about new forms of energy. "Now we build something better," he said. "Something that takes the best of both worlds. After all, that's what humans do best. We adapt, we learn, and we make things better." Thomas nodded, looking at the peaceful scene. "And this time, we'll do it together. No more barriers, no more separation. Just one world with endless possibilities." In the sky above them, Earth's satellites began to shine with magical light, while in the magical realm, ancient crystal towers hummed with electrical power. The war was over, but their real adventure, learning to live in this new combined world, was just beginning.